David Fine Media, taking the spoken word to the next level.
It's the show made by custom fans for custom fans. Every show, a special guest joins the guys to talk about customs, wrestling, memories, and more. And now, the starting lineup for the Bad Boys of Podcast. Introducing, from Sydney, Australia, standing 6 feet tall, weighing in at 220 pounds, he is the Plan, Sash Man. Next, from parts unknown, his weight is at $1.98 a pound, the big historian himself, Brother Brutus Valentine. And now, hailing from Music City, weighing in at none of your damn business, the man of 1,000 voices, the apprentice, talking Tyler Peters. And rounding out this fearsome foursome, the leader, the Pod Daddy, the ruler of Lady Droolers. Give it up, give it up, give it up for Mr. David So Fine. That's Tyler, Brutus, David, and Sash, the Figure Guys Podcast. Oh yeah!
Welcome into another exciting edition of the Figure Guys Podcast. Of course, as the great Smash Ventura of Smash Ventura Productions said in the introduction, I am the Pod Daddy. He named me the Pod Daddy. I am David Fine, the man to my right. Of course, if you're listening, it doesn't matter if he's left, right, up, down. He is the Plan Zash Man. He is going to be doing some customizing tonight, and during our whole entire broadcast, it's going to be amazing. The man below me, he is the fig historian. He is the smartest guy that I know in this podcast. That's why I call him the fig historian, the great Brutus Valentine. And the man to Brutus's right, all the way from Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, talking Tyler Peters. Guys, welcome into another exciting edition. I mean, we've had a lot of customizers on the program, people that put together some amazing figures, but we've never had a person who does accessories. You know, last week we had Nick David. He does belts. And tonight we have a man who puts together the stands that you see your LJNs and your other figures on. I mean, it's a great process, and Brutus is going to talk about that because he knows the process, and of course Zash knows that. And talking Tyler Peters and the great Pod Daddy David Fine, we're going to learn a lot from the great Dave Garland. Welcome into the program, Dave. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule tonight, and just stopping by the podcast and educating myself and Tyler on the process of putting together stands for LJNs and other figures.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I mean, it's an amazing. I mean, some of these things that I saw that Tyler sent to me, the pictures that you shared with him, are, absolutely amazing. I mean, Zash and Brutus, I know you can elaborate. I mean, what is the process that you have seen on your end that putting these together? I mean, these things are as detailed as the wrestling figures. I mean, there's some that looks like rings. There's some that looks like, some of these things that they've put together are just amazing.
There's several different kinds of the stands. The main stand is just the WWF logo, the old school WWF logo. I do some for the thumbs and the bendies, and then the ring stand. If you have a figure that you particularly want to show off, get a ring stand for it. And then I do the custom stands for individual figures. And pretty much I've had people come to me with, just ideas for, customs that they've done, and they want to stand for that. And I can do pretty much anything that they come up with. I've at least attempt.
I mean, the pictures that you sent, Tyler, before the show started. I mean, I'm going to bring it up here on the screen. I mean, these things are amazing. I'm going to start it over again, and we can just. I mean, this first LOD. I mean, this is. I mean,
that's the last one the most recent one that I did. I actually won those customs in a raffle, in a charity raffle that they ran on the LJN for Life, and I got the figures, and I figured, well, let's make a stand for them. So
yeah, I mean, who on this panel is not a fan of the Legion of Doom? I mean, Tyler. I mean, have you ever seen? I mean, you're a fan of the Legion of Doom. I mean, they look great on this stand that he made.
Yeah, they look amazing. I love the Legion of Doom. Hey, who does not love the Road Warriors? They're awesome, man. I'm blown away, just like the rest of this panel at your work, Dave. It's incredible, man. Thank you for sharing it with not only us, but our the audience for the Figure Guys podcast. It's remarkable.
There's a mini right there, or the mini stand for the bendy.
The bendies, yeah. That's good with the colours. I mean, those colours. That's almost like what was on the WWF duffel bag back in the day.
That's what I went with the blue and the gold, because that was when I watched back in the day, those were like the official colors.
Yeah,
and like you said, you have the duffel bag, and so you can get about any color of the filament that you want. So I went with that one for my main seller, my main stand, the best seller.
I mean,
and the bendies are very hard to get to stand up on their own, because they just do it. So yeah.
I mean, do you find, Dave, that some of the heavier LJNs, like a King Kong Bundy, I mean, he's a heavy figure. I mean, do you find that you have to use different stands, do you use the same materials if it's a heavier LJN? I mean, I know that all LJNs aren't made alike. I mean, some are heavier than others. I mean, do they all stand up to your amazing stands?
Interestingly enough, Bundy was the one that I used mainly at the beginning when I was first designing these to test it with, because he like you said, he's probably heavier than anything. He's as wide as anything. His feet are enormous, and I figured if we can get Bundy to stand in this, then just about anything will work.
And Bundy has a slight forward lean too. He's one of the figures that doesn't stand fairly well, but he leans forward, so his weight takes him forward. So if your stand can actually support him. Bundy weighs about 450 grams in metric, which is almost a pound for US. So, yep. And he's almost got a 1-to-1 LJN weight ratio to the figure. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you have this. I mean, this other Hulkamania one. I mean, that's different than the bendy, correct? I mean, is that the
that's actually a resin clone of a Series 5. That's actually my favorite figure that I own there. And I had there are 5 figures that don't fit in my regular WWF logo stand: the Series 5 Hogan, Honky Tonk Man, Sarge, Ultimate Warrior, and Bruno. So I had to make a separate design for all of those. Like, you see how the foot holders there are separate, because that one just wouldn't. There's just nothing I could do with the regular stand to get that one to stand. And like I said, that figure's up on my shelf, and you probably can't see it very well, but it's up on a shelf in a ring for that one, because that's the favorite one that I own. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because I just looking at him, I didn't pay attention to that. So even just the little details is awesome, holding him there. So yeah, I mean, a big Hulk Hogan fan. So definitely very cool seeing the belt on him and the bandana, everything. The stand is just awesome, just totally nostalgic. Yeah.
And the adornments to the stand, obviously the colours, but it actually places a figure in a time period from which it came as well. And so that's the thing about seeing this, the Hulkamania there. So that's a really good adornment, and it adds value to a collection in terms of, the nostalgia part of it as well.
I'm a big fan of everything old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these things are amazing. I mean, Zash, I know you're doing some customs right now. I mean, how do you have a lot of stands for your figures? Is that something that your customers, would want on their stands? I mean,
yeah, stands are great. I don't personally have many stands myself. because I find a way to make them stand up using putting things under the feet and so forth. But I did buy a bunch of stands off David when I first started getting into LJN. So he's been around for a long, long time, and the stands were great.
I actually looked, and I think you were customer number 7 when when I first, and you were the first one I'd sent over, like, overseas.
Awesome. Awesome. And it was a pretty big order. And they were great. All of my collection at the time were on stands from David's stands. And yeah, they look great. But I've just changed the display around now, very different to how I used to have it. So
the ones that you got are sort of primitive models, because they didn't even have this little, I call it the foot wedge here, to help balance the ones that are kind of. So I owe you a case of foot wedges sometime.
So you got a Killer Bees one there, Dave. Killer Bees, can you tell us about their ability to stand up on their own? Or?
Well, now I think about it, the Jim Brunzell figure is by far the most difficult figure that I've had to try and get balanced in these stands. I have to make a specific wedge to go in there to hold. And I don't remember, or I don't know if you've seen the LJN prototype design post. And it's interesting that it's Brunzell, and it shows that foot like kicked way out to the side and almost like on his tiptoe a little bit. And I see that every time, and I'm like, well, that's why that one was so difficult. It wasn't just a mistake. They meant to do it that way. Why, I have no idea, but
and have you got another Killer Bees one planned with a third set of toe wedges so SD Jones can go in there under the mask?
Not yet. I don't. Not yet.
Hey, I was going to ask you, Dave, speaking of tag teams and the difference between singles, do you prefer doing a tag team or doing a singles, or is there a preference? I'm just curious as somebody kind of new to it.
Really no preference. Honestly, I did a bunch of the singles first. The first, of course, I did the WWF logo one first, and then a couple, it's probably about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. I was coming home from vacation, and somebody had messaged me, can you make me a black stand with a pink WWF logo for Bret Hart? I said, well, yeah, but why don't I just make you a Bret Hart logo? And he said, well, that's even better. And it went to what it went to. And I'll be honest, the most fun part for me is coming up with a logo, designing a logo. That one right there, that British Bulldogs logo, that. I think there's about 22 or 23 separate pieces in what you're looking at right there on the screen. That one takes a little bit of time.
Incredible.
Right.
That's one of my favorites.
Well, a lot of people were disappointed, a lot of kids back then, that they came out in the maroon or burgundy tights and didn't have the Union Jack. And not only that, you can put a little Matilda there in the middle, and that would work really well. And then the Islanders can come up behind and take Matilda away.
I thought about putting like a pedestal there for Matilda, but it just wasn't good. I couldn't find anything that looked right. So we just went with the flag and the name.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, Macho Man's awesome. Yeah, this one, I don't know about you guys, but this one just took me away right away. Just the guard railing. I mean, David, was that one of yours? Or excuse me, Dave, because I know David's the host here, but was that one of your ideas? I mean, with the guard railing?
Yeah, I actually, somebody had said, can you make like a railing for me? And I said, well, sure. And went through about 2 or 3 designs and came up with, I forget how many sections of railing it takes to go the whole way around an LJN ring, but those aren't as popular. But I've sold a couple of those, and they've shown me pictures where they put them the whole way around their LJN ring, and they have a little aisle coming down from the ring, and really elaborate setups.
Yeah, I think that's cool. But go ahead, Bruce. No, I'm just adding to that. I think it's neat. Yeah.
No, that feeds into what I see, and it's one of the luxuries we don't have here in Australia. I mean, we have all these other luxuries. Is that a lot of guys have their basement setups. We rarely have a basement, And some of their setups, what they do, and being able to space things out. So having adornments like this is a fantastic way to recapture what they were really enjoying back in the mid to late 80s when they were watching it. So nice little guardrail. Now, who did he slam onto the guardrail famously?
Ricky Steamboat.
Ricky Steamboat. He'll never talk again. That's right. Yeah.
Hey, one of the greatest matches ever, too.
That was in front of Bonnie Steamboat, wasn't it, as well? And Ricky got taken out on the stretcher, and
That was back in the day when I actually believed what was happening on the screen.
What do you mean actually believed what was happening?
Don't ruin it for us. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there's the honky tonk man stand.
Oh, good big Cadillac.
The pink Cadillac.
Kayfabe is still alive here on the Figure Guys podcast.
I can hear the song, but I'm not hearing the really good song. I'm hearing the second one, a hunka hunky love, right? Which actually wasn't bad. And if guys go back and watch the Slammies when Honky does Honky Tonk Man live, it's pretty good. He's a pretty good singer. Oh, the Honky Tonk Man. Now that's a rip of the
have you ever been asked to make a rhythm and blues? For them, because of course, Greg Valentine with his jet black hair and Honky. There's just
someone did say something about you should make one of those, but I would have to get both those on there. I'd have to make the Cadillac front about twice the size of what that is, and it would take a long time. Like that, just the pink that you see there. That's probably about 8.5 hours of printing right there.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting thing about how long it takes you to print. I was just going to go off an aside there. I remembered when Jake copped Honky's guitar on the Snake Pit, and then the week after Jimmy Hart comes and says, well, you're lucky he doesn't play piano. So that was a good one. But yeah, so 8.5 hours printing that day. People will get this in the mail and say, it looks great, it looks fantastic. But why does it take so long to print?
It's just a slow process. It puts the plastic down layer by layer. And if you go too fast, it gets sloppy. And you see a lot of 3D printed stuff. If you buy much 3D printed stuff, you get a lot of stuff that's pretty sloppy. And I try to make sure that anything I sell, anything I send to anybody, it is if not perfect, almost perfect.
Yeah, it's another case, isn't it? You get what you pay for, and especially in the customizing world, the people are putting in so much skill and talent and time into getting these right, and it pays off in the end because you're getting quality.
Look at this great tag team. The Mega Powers. We have the Macho Man on the left with his stand, and Hulk Hogan in the ring. This ring looks like it'd be more difficult to print out. Do you just print out the ring and then the ropes are separate, or how does that go?
Yeah, that ring is going to be, each ring post is a separate piece. The blue base is a piece, and then the blue ring insert there's actually 3 pieces in there. So that's about 8 or 9, 10, 11, because I also have a coupler in the back for the ring ropes, and then the ring ropes are just paracord. So you're looking at the base of that's about 8 hours. The insert, the light blue ring mat is about 4 hours. Each ring post is an hour, and the logos are only about 10 minutes a piece. But there's some time into it. Now, I don't have to be by it the entire time. Generally, what I do is you put the it's called G code into the machine and select the right one, hit print, and it does it for you. Most of the time. Now there are times when you wake up and it looks like a box of spaghetti blew up on top of the printer plate, and those you just slide that in the trash can and start over. But yeah, it's time consuming, which is why I ended up having to buy more printers, because if I can only have one print at a time, it kind of limits how many I can make.
Sorry, David, you go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no! Before you ask an amazing question. We hear in the background your printer, which is amazing. What are you printing out now? It's one of those things that if you're printing all the time, it must be printing something a mass order that you have going out.
Yeah, I have a order 20 of the 20 of these going out tomorrow, and it actually just finished up a batch of 5 of the little foot wedges that I use to account for any of the individual differences in the figures. Like I'd said earlier, that sometimes you'll get a Macho Man that will just stand on its own, and then other times you'll get a Macho Man that which won't even come close. And even in the stand, it's kind of wobbly. So you take that, you put it under either the front or the back of the feet. You said about how Bundy had a forward lean, which he does. And if you put that under the front, under his toes, then you can balance him out so he sort of stands straight up for you.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, I wanted to ask. No, go ahead, Bruce. No, go ahead.
I'm going in a different direction, so you go, Tyler. Yeah.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just going to ask real quickly, Dave. What's some advice you could give to somebody who wants to learn, how to do these stands like this? I'm just interested for anybody wanting to learn. Maybe there's somebody out there watching or listening that has that kind of question.
Patience, first off, because the best advice that I can give is, if you're going to sell things, only sell things that are, like I said, perfect or almost perfect. Because if you sell somebody a batch of stands or something or other and they're junk, then you're never going to sell them to that person again.
Yeah.
And so there's a Macho and Liz stand. The Liz was actually not very difficult to get her balanced on it. That's actually the same design as the bendy stand. I threw her in a bendy stand and it worked, and so copy that over the Macho stand and done.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm slightly disappointed. I need a third thing there off on an angle to fit George the Animal Steel in there, lusting after Elizabeth.
I do not have a George the Animal Steel stand yet.
He stands pretty well, but he's got to lean forward as well too. So,
yeah, he's a heavy one.
Yeah, I mean, Zash, I think I found a stand for Macho and your Miss Elizabeth that you completed recently. Maybe you could get that for Dave and put Liz up there.
She's actually standing by herself, which is surprising enough because she's got no shoes.
Yeah, well, actually, Zash stands by himself. Zash really stands at attention when he's looking at his naked Elizabeth. So,
yeah. I mean, folks, if you've been watching the show for any length of time, you know the ongoing joke with Zash is that he had a naked Miss Elizabeth, and he made her lifelike. That's all I'm going to say, and it was amazing, but. That's all I'm going to say. So I don't want to embarrass Zash anymore, or go on for that. But let's see. Next we have up here is another G.I. Joe there for Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh, Sarge, yeah. The fun part. Well, the most enjoyable part for any of the stands for me is coming up with the logo, because they all have to have some sort of logo. I do sell one that doesn't have, but those are boring. And that one, Sarge doesn't. Some of them are obvious, like the Hogan is obvious, Hulkamania. Some of them are easy, but the Sarge didn't really have much of a logo. So, G.I. Joe, he was on the cartoon around the same time he was in wrestling, and so I just sort of took the G.I. Joe logo and modified it a little bit, and there you go.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah, that's cool in the LJN book.
Oh, well, yeah, and Sarge is a shocker. He leans his chin naturally overbalances him forward, and we know a lot of guys don't want a Sarge in the collection, but if you want to display your Sarge off to the side, well, you've got the perfect stand there to do it, and if you don't, well, you're just another maggot, as Sarge would say.
That's classic.
I mean,
go ahead, David. I'm jumping.
This next stand. I mean, who would that display?
That was a custom that I did. I've only done one of those. It was an AWA. We had something from the AWA figure, or I'm not even sure what it was at this point. I don't remember, but he said, "Can you do an AWA logo?" And I said, "Well, sure." And that was actually a fairly easy one. And you print that up, and that was, like I said, that was an easy one to design. I've got there's another one of the Hogan ring.
Yeah, we can't forget our AWA guys. I mean, they were contemporaneous with the LJNs. There is an argument about which come first. It doesn't matter, but I'll get off that. Rip and Rip. Wow. Best, one of the best films never to be shown. I don't know. Rip and Rip.
There's one that I was sitting around and I had some time and I'm like, what can I make? And I don't know why. There was a Rip 'em custom Hogan on there. I'm like, I tell you what, I bet if I make that, I will sell 0 of those. And so I made 2 of them, and I actually, the one in the picture, I actually did sell to somebody.
Right. Yeah. You can
good for you. Yeah.
You can make one for Zeus, but he'll keep missing one of his feet because he'll be looking in the other direction.
There's a close up of the Bulldogs.
That's good. I mean, the Union Jack, the red, white, and blue, celebrating the Union of Wales, England, and Scotland. Although Scotland wants out. Oh, here we go. Yep.
There's one for the Mountie.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, and another Jimmy Hart kind of theme. Wasn't he a manager for the Mountie? I mean, a little history there.
Yeah. Oh, well, Frenchie Martin was actually the manager for Dino Bravo, which would fit in quite well. But I was thinking you could do a hybrid USA-Canada one for those good old All-American boys, the fabulous Rougeau brothers, when they turn. Right. But look, again, the Canadian flag is one of those flags that, looks fantastic. So seeing it like that, there's quite a few French Canadian and Canadian wrestlers apparently, right? But Rick Martel could go in there very nicely as well.
Mm-hmm. The person that requested that one, I'm pretty sure it was a Mountie.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another more recent one. I haven't even, we'll say, put that one on sale for real. I tried to get the color fade, which you can't really do on my machines, but I did as best I could.
Yeah, because it goes from one stream of the plastic input and then switches over to the other one.
Yeah.
It can't be variegated like a paint mask.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing with these. And we're seeing a lot of, we had Nick David on last week and we've got Dave on this week. And these guys are hand making it using machinery, not using machinery. In order to make, toys and other things, you actually have to cut a die to do it. And cutting a die is like a metal mold, right? And we're talking tens and tens and tens of thousands. And then they have to be injection molded in a factory, right? So to produce that output, that's why these things are bespoke and they really add life to someone's collection. And again, it's the customizers that are help keeping our hobby alive, because otherwise we're just stuck with 70+1 figures and that's it. And no one can afford to buy, some of those now.
Yeah, Dave, I was going to ask, speaking of poses, I mean, have you ever had a stand where each wrestler will face off, looking at each other like a confrontation? I just wondered if you've ever done
No, I haven't. I'm
well, that's distracting.
For that one.
I mean, could you make a stand for? This is Tyler's date for Saturday night evening. So
that's not a Saturday night's main event, by the way. Okay, let's just clarify that.
I don't know. Might be able to 3D print a bag to go over the head on that one. I'm not sure.
I'm with you. Yeah.
But no, I've never had one where they're facing each other. I'm limited on the amount of space that I can take up with like the base of the stand, because the printers have only so much space on the build plate. But I could do it with the like with my tag team stands. I just have a dovetail joint where you just put them together there, and I can honestly, that might be a project to do actually, where you could have either wrestler, put any wrestler you want in there and just put them together with a dovetail joint and go from there.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Do you have any like professional skills or your work that actually has led you into this? I mean, where did this come from?
No, actually, by trade, I'm a phys ed teacher, and so that doesn't necessarily lend itself to being tech savvy. But I just happen to be. I've always been into gadgets, and when 3D printers came out, I couldn't even fathom the idea of. I couldn't picture it in my mind, and I saw one, and I was like, "Well, that's pretty cool." So you wait for it to come down in price a little bit because that kind of stuff always does. I bought one, and it's probably about 3 years ago now. My one buddy Josh from work, who has all the figures, and he's been actually a lot of help, especially getting stands that work for like the Series 5 Hogan and the Sarge, and like because I can't just look at it and draw the plans. I need to have the figure in hand. If I don't have the figure in hand, then I can't do it. But he's let me borrow. He invited me to some of the Facebook pages with the LJN customs and all that, and I noticed that a lot of people were using like doll stands. And
those ones.
Yeah. And
Tyler's got a whole bunch of those for his.
I do. I've got special precious moments figurines. That figure. That's been the running joke for me. So well, Dave, please make me some, man. I need it for my collection.
I just figured that we can do better for the Macho Man than something from Hobby Lobby. That's just it's just something, and I came up with a predecessor of what I sell now. But and then especially the guys early on that bought like big orders. Like I said, Zash was, I think, my first international customer and like overall customer number 7. And he bought a big batch of them. And between him and then somebody else, when I first started, ordered like 2 dozen of the rings. And with those 2 orders, I bought more printers. And
You didn't go on holidays to the Hamptons or something like that. You reinvested it into making more stands, and you're saying how Zash was one of your first. It's one of those things that the money that people spend circulates within the community itself, which is really quite interesting. So someone actually, I sold 20 here, I'm going to buy 5 customs type of thing, and and it's actually a circular thing. So what was that old saying used to be on paychecks when people got paid in cash? It's good business to spend where you earn, something like that.
Yeah, hey, I was gonna ask the panel, Dave. Hey, can you make Brutus a stand for what is it, Velvet McIntyre? What's her name that you claim that I need to go on a date with? It's that she's kind of I'm trying to get you back.
You having a go at my digital customs?
Well, I think they're great, but you want to come at me, so we're spreading the love. Hey, we got to come back at each other.
That's absolutely fair enough. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, if I had to have a stand for my dates, I wouldn't need one because they'd need to be so drunk before they'd come up to me. They'd be falling over anyway.
There you go. Hey, you're the man. Hey, that's why I had to try.
Speaking of stands, have any of your stands? Have they been featured in the books? Brutus, or are they going to be featured in any of the future books? It would be definitely a thing to put in the book if people have not seen your book. Are there any books available?
Yes, there's always books available, and I need to sell more and need to sell more of the Has books. The first book had that limit of I could only have a certain number of pages to make the weight to make the postage, which sounds silly, but it does make a big difference. And who was Brutus Valentine anyway? As Tyler would say, he's just some nobody from some country down there, and who gives a crap? And he'd be right. He'd be absolutely right in saying that. But the second book features all customs. That's because it's the guys who didn't get a figure. And so I want to be able to show some of the other customizing efforts as well. And so, again, it's about making the weight on the pages. So I think it'd be great to have different stands, accessories, belts, that sort of stuff in there, and to showcase guys that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things. Dave, I mean, has there been a customer that's come to you and said, "Hey, I want this unique stand made," and you've done it? I mean, what is the most unique stand that you've done that, I mean, may not be LJN, it could be another type of figure that people have said, "Hey, we know you have great work. Can you create something for us?"
Um, as far as the wrestling genre goes, I did a New Japan Pro Wrestling stand that I sent that to. I don't think I sent that. I sent that out once today, the picture to one of you today, but I didn't send it to both. But that New Japan Pro Wrestling is probably the favorite one, my favorite one that I've done. It was the logo itself was extremely time consuming, we'll say. But that one was probably my favorite. And then as far as like the ones that haven't been commissioned but they're regular figures, probably the Sarge.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, with that, do you get any requests for like modern WWE or anything or AEW or speaking of New Japan, have you got anybody asking you about that? To do stands for certain guys, wrestlers?
Not modern stuff. Usually it's just about all throwback stuff. Honestly,
Okay.
because most of the figures are throwbacks. I mean, the new, are they the Mattel wrestlers, the Elite or whatever? My kids have a bunch of those, and they actually fit in these stands. And I've thought about maybe doing a line for those. But one thing I learned very early on in making stands for action figures is if the action figures stand on their own, then stands do not sell. I had an awesome Masters of the Universe design that I just thought was going to be awesome, but they stand pretty well on their own, and so it just didn't take off. So the funny thing is, when we're walking through the toy aisle at Target or whatever, I kind of check out the figures and I think they'll stand on their own, and I'm hoping they don't, because then maybe there's a market. But the ones that already stand, nothing.
No, that's interesting. That's why I wanted to ask, because you brought up the New Japan. So I thought, hey, I wondered if some of these customizers, whether it's with LJNs or stands or rings, have been asked to do any of the kind of modern wrestling. So I thank you for that answer. I just think it's legitimate. It's good to know.
Yeah, the stands were an interesting thing. I just while Dave and Tyler were talking, I just flashed up a picture of the actual figure of. That's a Hulk Hogan with stand from the original LJN line, and there's a lot of conjectures over stands and when they come. Actually, there isn't much conjecture. People say the first run of LJNs included stands, and that's just absolutely not correct. The first run of LJNs did not include stands, and I can verify that. That's not a presumption. That's part of years of research into it. And the way you can tell where a card came from, you won't be able to see on this, but I'll point you in the right direction, is first off, if you have a look over here to see if the Wrestling Superstars logo has a trademark or not, because the first run didn't have trademarks, and this doesn't have a trademark. Secondly, you go to the 5-back and you see if the names have trademarks. On this card, they do not have trademarks. This is an early card, part of the first production runs. And the final clincher is to look at where they were manufactured. And normally it'll be here, but the stand's in the way. But you'll also get the doubling over here. Now, this is a made in China card. So this is the second set of runs, not the first set of runs. You might find some of the stands have a made in China overprint sticker on a Hong Kong card. But China came in midway through 85 after the figures really went off. So all the early figures were made in Hong Kong. Right, and then the second production runs of figures were made in China, and for some reason, and no one in LJN who I was in contact was able to tell me, they don't know why they did it. We know they didn't stand up, and they were produced with it, to the best of my knowledge, one production run only on the cheaper mold, which is the aluminium mold, which means only about 50,000 would have been made. And if you assume 99% of those were sold to kids, June 1985 was when they were literally flying off the stands. There's not too many stands left. And you see a few pop up on eBay, a few originals, and they're great. But we need people like Dave to actually make stands to help the guys stand up. So that was a little bit quick, but that's the origin of the stands. No, they weren't first production runs; they were the second production runs.
Yeah, I mean it's we asked this question to everybody, and
I put everyone to sleep then.
No,
I've got a question for you, Brutus, if I may ask.
Yeah.
So with the first production runs from Hong Kong, from Hong Kong, right? Yeah. So were they like the how many on the back, and were they the same, the 4-back, or what was the deal with
they
them?
were the 5-back. No trademark
5-back.
on the wrestling superstars on the front. No trademarks on the pictures of the 5-back on the back. Made in Hong Kong front, made in Hong Kong back, but narrow blisters as opposed to the wide blister, because the blisters had to be increased to fit the stands, and then they stuck with the wide blisters after that. So the first runs have narrower blisters on all of the 5, and in fact, the first Hulk Hogan on his production mold code on the back, 1984, it's copyright Titan Sport, not Titan Sports. So if you got a Titan Sport Hogan, right, and it shouldn't have a number on it, that's actually the first Hogan's out of the factory.
But you can tell because it's a thinner bubble anyway, and also
thinner bubble, and then those 5 stayed with the thicker bubble because they weren't going to remold the bubble and that sort of stuff again. So
is there many of them around? I don't know if I've seen one.
No, not many. Look, in card, again, you go back to when they came out, which was that summer of '85 when the stands were hitting the stands, and Hulk Hogan's were flying off the stand. They couldn't get it. So that's too many stands there. That's getting confusing, right? That's like the Killer Bees mass confusion with SD Jones. I couldn't work out who was who. Right. So
I'm following.
So what you would expect is we can find 87 and 88 carded figures in good condition because a lot of those didn't sell in the end. But to find 1985 figures still in good condition means it's likely some adult collector back then bought them and kept them, and it was not cool to collect toys, right? It absolutely wasn't. And if a kid got it, it'd be out of the pack before they even got out of the shop, right? That was the thing back then. So I'm
How many of you
have a Hogan? I've got a Andre, and I have a snooker in with the
the
stand.
Hong Kong one.
I don't
Kong.
have a Sheik and don't have a stud. Stud seems to be hard to get with the stand.
Have you seen a Hong Kong carded figure?
I've got Hong Kong carded figures, yeah.
You've got them. So they're not ultra rare.
No, because a lot of they were really produced in a large extent. The Chinese figures are more common, but people don't seem to care about whether they're China or Hong Kong. But it's just you look at the blisters on those 5, narrow, wide, and then they stay wide. I mean, I think I've got 4 Jimmy Snookers because actually because I don't have dates like Tyler does. So there you go.
Wow, man, he's coming in heavy now.
Oh no, I was dissing myself there. And poor Dave thought, what have we got himself into here? Yeah.
I thought it was my turn.
A serious question for the great Dave Garland, creator of some amazing stands. This past year of COVID and people being, home from work or maybe out of work, I mean, has that decreased or increased, like with people getting stimulus, the demand for your stands? I mean, or has it not really affected?
When COVID first hit, I actually took what I had for sale I was on eBay at the time. I'm not on eBay anymore. I'm on Etsy now instead. But I took them down because I thought, well, there's no reason to even have them up there, and was just selling on Facebook. But then things started to pick up and then pick up more. And it got to the point where I was having a hard time getting filament. Filament's the raw material for the 3D printers. I was having a hard time getting enough filament to make the stands that I was selling. It really took off. It really did, because I mean, you're home and there's really nothing else you can do. And so I actually ordered. That's when I ordered another. I'm up to 5 printers now. I think I had 3, and then I got 2 more. on quarantine because, what else are you going to do? And that actually really increased my business, which shocked me. I shut down for a little bit and started making like face shield holders for local hospitals and stuff like that, for the local medical center, because that was something that one of the 3D printer manufacturers made this design where you could just print it and it would hold like an overhead transparency as like a face shield. So I did a bunch of those for a local hospital. And I live in a pretty rural area in Pennsylvania, and we actually didn't get really hit until, gosh, it was almost a year in. Well, probably not a year in, but it was a significant amount of time after the cities got hit till it finally ended up getting here. So it was a little different experience for us out in the middle of nowhere.
To get the personal protective equipment in that secondary wave was so hard to get, and so by using an overhead transparency, that was just a quick, fast way of having some sort of barrier control in there.
Yeah, it was, and it was easy to switch them off too, because you'd mount. It was like a headband that you'd print, and you'd punch holes in the transparency, put it on, and if it got dirty or whatever, take it off, put another one back on, and you're back in business. So
and of course, there's lots of overhead transparencies around now because people don't use them. I've actually got some here. One thing I was thinking of, Dave, you talked about that you teach PE, physical education. Can you print like a little Hulkamania workout set replica with the little dumbbells and that sort of stuff?
I might be able to get the shape, but the weight would be kind of iffy. The weight would be kind of hard to get the weight up to where you'd want. Although maybe that's what you're going for. They look heavy, but they're really not.
Yeah, and just the little ones. So Mr. Wonderful, who we lost just a couple of weeks ago, can burst out and do the ads for it. And I actually just put my seat in the room because the room's finally getting looked up a bit. But that would be a good little adornment, like to go with it.
I think that's a great idea Brutus brought up. I think we'd all be for it.
Well, that would be a first for me to bring up a good idea. So
maybe that'll be the next project.
Yeah, as if you haven't got enough to do. Yeah.
And speaking of projects, Zash, you're finishing up your Harvey Whippleman's. How's that coming along tonight?
I probably wouldn't say finishing up, but I've done one which I put in a charity raffle on LJM for Life, which Justin Bennett, I think, won. And he also ordered some heads to go with it. So I'm going to be posting that this afternoon. So before I post it, I've got to get the color match of the jacket. Not that I care it has to be exactly perfect, but it's just easier to just go off it and look at something while you paint the rest of them. So I'll get started on them now, and I'll work on them more tonight because we're in lockdown here. I'm pretty much customizing and doing casts full time at the moment. So I'll get on to that today and then post his off. And these are actually for 4 other customers that I'm doing these for. I'm doing the Harvey Wimpleman for more of a gift to some of my good customers. So it's a one-off thing. I'll probably do it once a year to my best customers of the year and give them a little treat, to say thank you for supporting me and so on. So that's what I'm doing here. I want to get these out of the way so I can get onto some more paid jobs. So I promised these to people.
What was that you flashed up there, David? I don't know if Zash actually saw that. Zash is making his Whippleman shine. Oh my! That was a message from one of the viewers there.
Hey, I think that's awesome. Yeah,
it was probably Tyler's number one fan, Michael Weems. I mean, he's Mr. Funny Man. But I'm always asked this question and every person that comes on the show. As a kid growing up, did you have wrestling figures? I mean, was it something that you got as a kid that you maybe got more as an adult? I mean, kind of explain. I mean, did it go back in the day when you were younger, or is it something that you just got interested in, in the past, 10, 15 years?
I've always been a WWF fan from way back. I mean, as a little kid, watching. I was born in '77, so I was growing up right in the golden era, and I had some bendies and some thumbs, but I never had one of the big 8-inch LJNs. I can't explain why. I have no idea why. I had all sorts of other stuff. It's not that we weren't able to get them or anything like that. I have no explanation for. I knew about them, but I just have no explanation for why I never had one of the full size 8-inch LJNs, because I had my dad made me a wrestling ring out of plywood and nails and stuff, and rubber bands and ropes, and played with that for hours and hours and hours and hours with bendies and stuff like that, but never had one of the 8-inch for whatever reason. I don't, like I said, I can't think of a reason why. Just something that just happens to be how it happened.
I enjoy hearing those stories. So we're always at that.
We feel for you, David.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to create a scenario for you, Dave. Just imagine you're back teaching your kids, and they say plenty of strange things, and you've got to stay on your toes. Hey, bro, you got five 3D printers. Why can't you print me like a Smash or a Bad News Brown, mate? It wouldn't, why can't you just do that, bro?
Well, I can, but it's going to cost you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, $20. I've got $20.
That's the line. That's what you got to watch out for. Yeah.
How long would it take, you reckon, to render an approximate 8-inch figure with all that depth of filament that's in it?
Oh, for me to do that?
Yeah, your printers, yeah.
25 years.
25 years, that's right.
Yeah, the people that do that do those, they do. I've got the filament printers, whereas the people that do the clone figures, most of them are resin printers, and there are a lot of things like that. And most of the people that are printing those, they have a 3D scanner where they scan the figure in and then tweak it from there, because the Honky Tonk Man Cadillac for that one. Yeah. And like I said, I have zero formal training in CAD and any computer drafting or anything like that. So anything I need to learn, I go right to YouTube, and I try and learn it off of YouTube. And just to do that Cadillac probably took me about 3 weeks to get that where I really wanted it. And like I said, the figures themselves would just be almost impossible to draw the whole thing unless you, like I said, are very well trained or have a scanner that you can scan it in.
Yeah, or have that absolute production level, factory level printing,
right.
Which is, and they don't do that. They use injection moldings for doing that. You mentioned the 3D scanning. I tried to go in to get scanned 3D once, and the machine said, "Sorry, one at a time, please."
I mean, I don't know about this comment, Brutus and Tyler. I mean, maybe the Iron Sheik is watching. Maybe the Iron Sheik is watching. I don't know.
What is it? First of all, I used to get a lot of heat on this program, and now all of a sudden they're like, "I'm your favorite Brutus." What are they drinking, man? Because it should be Brutus. It should be. Brutus.
I did not know that we had the Iron Sheik watching us. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, we get all sorts of people watching us. I mean,
you never know who's paying attention. But hey, I was going to ask just real quickly, and I'll give it to somebody else, to Dave. Have you ever had anybody like that, a wrestler? I know it's a far-fetched question. Comment on any of your stands? I mean, just out of curiosity.
No, that's something that you can hope for. That's like the ultimate compliment that
right.
you can get. But no, I've not had that. Not had that happen. At any point yet. I mean, every once in a while there are some of the guys on these pages, things like that. But I haven't had anybody, say, "Hey, that's a nice stand for me," in there yet. So,
I remember
someday.
someone told me, and if you're watching, I apologize because it's your story, not mine, that Mario Mancini once approached Vince McMahon and said, you should make a figure of me and have it with an accessory of a stretcher. So so that might be an interesting sort of stand to have, for the carrying out.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure many of the wrestlers that are watching this program really would like to see the Tyler Peters Precious Moments podcast, but that's coming up.
He said it, not me. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Win a
know.
date with, first prize is win a date with Tyler. Second prize is win 2 dates.
Hey, that's Halloween come early. That's that trick or treat. I'll tell you, and that's a knock on me, by the way. So,
But I mean, and on a serious note, I mean, before we head to the house tonight and in this another amazing show. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, next week we have Derek Danforth, and coming up in 2 weeks' time, this is going to be a threesome you'll never forget. The Goodor brothers, Mike, Matt, and Justin, will be on the program with Talking Tyler Peters, Brutus Valentine, and Zash Man. I mean, that's just going to be amazing. But before we get going, Dave, is there anything that you see that you're working on that you would like people to maybe to look at your website, look at Facebook that you're working on for future?
Currently, right now, I've been wanting to get an Andre the Giant stand because Andre is one of the all-time greats, but I'm just stuck as far as what kind of logo to put on there. The just text Andre the Giant is kind of boring, and I don't want to do that. And the giant footprint is about the only thing that I can remember as being that, or the giant hand, or about the only things that I can remember. The hand actually might end up going with the hand, but that's probably the next one that I'm going to end up doing. Either that or $1 Million Man, because I won $1 Million Man in a raffle the other day, and so might end up doing that one. But if anybody out there has an idea for a logo for Andre the Giant, that's probably.
I was going to say you could put a beer or a bottle of wine, but you have to put about 100 in, so that wouldn't quite.
True.
Work out.
Yeah.
I just put a cup holder on the front of it.
Yeah,
there's a cup holder on the front of it for a beer.
Yeah.
Andre's hard, isn't it? Because he sort of transcends any logo that was ever imposed upon him. I'm thinking in my head of the writing that was used. I can't think of any. So that's a tough one to do. And yes, boss, will get that one worked out. Someone mentioned a threesome before. I remember Zash telling me he's had a lot of threesomes he'd rather forget.
What the?
With his whip.
Where's this going?
What's happened to Brutus today? He's normally the clean cut.
No, I'm wondering that, Zash. I mean, what happened? I mean,
oh man. I mean, and
you can see I'm visibly embarrassed at myself.
Before
it's always red, but it's even redder. I mean, I look like brother loves bad cousin at the best of times, and now I look like his bloody bad uncle.
I mean, before Dave decides to freeze up like Brutus does all the time with his internet connection down in Australia, Tyler, is there anything you're working on? I mean, I know you're not into the customizing yet, but I mean, are you appearing anywhere for Coastal Championship Wrestling? Are you writing anything? I know you are.
Yeah, I'm actually get to contribute to the Coastal Championship Wrestling magazine. I help some of the other writers with covering previews and different things. And also I want to shout out to sportnanariumradio.com. I'm able to cover nostalgic wrestling and also some independent wrestling. We're trying to really highlight the UK and North America, a lot of those promotions. So Brutus is doing some kind of insight.
I have a question, Tyler. So what are you doing hanging around with us? I mean, seriously.
No, it's an honor to be with you guys. Listen, I'm only
to be in your presence.
Well, you're being very kind there, Brutus. I'm honored to be in your guys' presence. No, it's the other way around. Very humble.
I think it's a part of his early release. The judge said he had to appear on this podcast each and every week. If not, he would be back in jail. So, I mean, I think his probation as the as the apprentice will be coming up pretty soon whenever he takes over and does the Precious Moments podcast coming up here on the network.
There you go. That's what it is.
We're gonna have to have a Precious Moments episode, I think.
Don't worry. Hey, don't worry. That's coming up in season 2, Zash. I got some of the greatest Precious Moments customizers in the history of this business will be coming up on the program, season 2, starting next year. But Zash, I can see your face somewhat. You're not in Harvey Whippleman anymore. What do you have? I mean, anything besides the Whipplemans that you have coming up that you want to mention?
Custom Mania Backlash. Yes, that's right. Custom Mania Backlash is starting next Monday. You've got to get your entries in by Sunday night, midnight. So it's just one figure. It's going to be poll voting. Send your entries to Brutus Valentine, Shad Guthia. I hope I said it right. And Eric Boyer. Yeah, look, guys, it's just one figure. I think we've got about 7 or 8 or 9 people so far that's entered, including myself. Now, you're going to have to be good. Yeah, you're going to have to be good in this one because I'm entering. So make sure they're good ones. I'm only joking. Enter anything. Just get your figures in there, and it's all about the fun. And yeah, it should be a bit of a laugh. Doesn't matter, win, lose, doesn't matter, as long as you're a part of it and we have a few giggles along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's going to be points, given to the first, second, and third. I mean, it's going to be an ongoing thing for the next, couple of months to the end of the year. I mean, you're going to be able to accrue points and customizer of the year. It's the brainchild of Zash, but he gave it to other people to run because, I mean, I could tell that in Custom Mania you really wanted to enter, but unfortunately you were a part of it, so you were not able to enter. And Brutus is holding up Hulk Hogan. What were you going to say?
Oh, that was the points. That was the famous points that were on the pack. And for years didn't mean anything until you could redeem them for the Bendy's tag, the Bendy's belt buckle.
And speaking of things that, we were talking about things that were coming up. Brutus, I mean, I know you have the Has book that Greenville is selling and the LJN book. How was the Has? I mean, how are both sales on both of the books going?
Well, the Has books gone off recently, and a whole bunch of going over to Saudi Arabia. Sergeant Slaughter follows Grenville and always retweets his tweets. And then a guy from a pretty high up guy in Saudi Arabia is a big fan of the Sergeant of wrestling, and suddenly we got all these things on the weekend saying how much to ship to Saudi Arabia, and I'm like, so a whole shipment. When I mean a whole shipment, it's not like going to make us rich sort of shipment, but it was a good little fillip to get things going again. So Grenville's there, ready and waiting. We're down. We're about 60% of the Has books are gone, but it'd be good to move them faster so we can get into a second printing, and that'll make Grenville really happy. So, and as for me, it doesn't matter. I've spoken enough. What I wanted to thank is Dave, because with what his real profession is, we can't exist, and especially through pandemic times, without our people who work in the community. And teachers are one of the most important people who help ground and keep young people connected within their community and so on. So thank you so much for doing that. And in Australia, with PE teachers in schools, they say what happens on camp stays on camp.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been another exciting episode of the show. I mean, Dave, thanks for coming on. I know it was last minute, but I mean, thanks for rearranging your schedule to come on the program. I mean, some of those stands are just amazing, and your work is just outstanding. And people, if people wanted to purchase some of your stands or inquire, I mean, how can people do that?
Through Facebook is the easiest way. The LJN for Life Facebook page, LJN Figures and Customs. I'm in the Rubber Rumble also. There's that. I do have an Etsy store, which they take a pretty good cut, so I can give you a better deal if you contact me through Facebook. I just appreciate you guys having me on. I like seeing the customs. I like just being able to contribute at least a little bit in what I can do, because I couldn't. I've been watching Zash do the customs up there, and from what it looked like at the start of the show to what it looks like now, like I couldn't possibly even begin to do that. But I just like to contribute how I can. So thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I'm definitely happy back in the very near future. But for the great Victorian Brutus Valentine, the apprentice talking Tyler Peters, the planned Zash Man, and of course, the great Dave Garland. I am the pod daddy, David Fine. We'll see you back here next week where we have Derek Danforth, and then 2 weeks' time, Mike, Matt, and Justin Gador for the amazing threesome right here on the Figure Guys podcast.